This is Jason Citron, co-founder of Discord. His own team thought the idea was trash. Employees were literally quitting through Post-it notes. So what did this visionary CEO do when reality wasn't matching his billion-user dreams?
So what we did is we actually made a bunch of fake screenshots in Photoshop, put up a web page, announced this thing in closed beta, got TechCrunch to cover it.
He just admitted it on camera. He photoshopped fake growth. No creative marketing. Fraud. Today, Discord is worth $15 billion, built on a foundation of fake screenshots and investor FOMO. This is the story they don't want you to remember. Let's rewind to 2014. Jason Citron was 24 years old, standing at the edge of entrepreneurial disaster. His mobile gaming company was bleeding money real fast. The runway was shrinking, investors were ghosting, and he was one failed pitch away from moving back into his parents' basement.
And I remember calling my dad and being like, I think I'm gonna have to move back home because the startup thing's not gonna work.
But then something clicked. Hidden inside his failing gaming app was a chat feature that players actually loved. What if he could spin that off into its own product? What if gamers everywhere could use this communication tool? There was just one tiny problem. The product didn't exist yet.
Sitting around and we had this insight around taking the technology out of the game and releasing it, but it was gonna take 4 or 5 months to actually pull it out.
4 to 5 months. In startup time, that's an eternity. Investors don't fund ideas, they fund traction. They need proof that people want your product before they'll write checks. But how do you prove demand for something that exists only in your imagination? Citron's solution was audacious in its simplicity. If you can't build it, fake it. We made a bunch of fake screenshots in Photoshop, put up a web page, got TechCrunch to cover it, and raised a bridge round. They literally opened Photoshop, created fictional interface designs, made them look real, and used those fabricated images to convince investors to hand over real money. The brazenness is almost admirable, if you ignore the whole lying to investors part. The strategy worked beyond his wildest expectations. The fake screenshots and landing page generated 200 developer signups, enough social proof to make investors believe Discord was the real deal. Those 200 names on a wait list became the foundation for a multi-million-dollar funding round. What's fascinating here isn't just the audacity of the lie, but how perfectly it exploited investor psychology. In the startup world, momentum is everything. A product with 200 people waiting for it looks infinitely more valuable than a product with 0 users because it doesn't exist yet. What most people don't understand about venture capital is that investors aren't really buying your product, they're buying your story. And the most compelling story in Silicon Valley isn't about revolutionary technology or world-changing missions. It's about growth. Growth is the golden ticket, the universal language that turns skeptical investors into zealous believers. Show them user numbers climbing, engagement metrics soaring, and suddenly your pitch deck becomes a treasure map with X, marking a billion-dollar exit. But there's a psychological trap that makes fake metrics so devastatingly effective. Once investors see growth, they stop questioning how real it is. The human brain is wired to recognize patterns and project them into the future. Those fabricated Discord screenshots didn't just show current usage, they implied inevitable success. This creates what economists call information asymmetry on steroids. Investors are making decisions based on incomplete information, but they don't know the information is incomplete. They think they're seeing proof when they're actually seeing fiction. Discord's fake screenshots triggered every psychological bias that drives investment decisions. Social proof. Look, 200 developers are already signed up. Scarcity. This is moving fast, we need to get it now. Authority. TechCrunch covered it, so it must be legitimate. The beauty of Citron's strategy was that he didn't need to fabricate complex financial projections or hire actors to play satisfied customers. A few well-crafted Photoshop mock-ups created the illusion of traction. And traction in the startup world is more valuable than gold. Perception often matters more than reality. Discord's fake metrics created real demand, which attracted real money, which enabled them to build a real product. The lie became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Investors often talk about pattern recognition, the ability to spot the next big thing based on familiar signals. But when those signals can be fabricated in Photoshop, pattern recognition becomes pattern manipulation. The very metrics designed to reduce investment risk become tools for manufacturing it. All right, the story takes an ironic twist. The fake metrics that launched Discord eventually became real. Sometimes the most audacious lies have a funny way of transforming into truth. After securing funding with those fabricated screenshots, Citron and his team actually had to build the product they'd been pretending existed. 4 months of intense development later, Discord launched for real. And people actually loved it. The gaming community, desperate for reliable voice chat that didn't sound like robots talking through tin cans, embraced Discord with evangelical fervor. Streamers started using it live on air. Gaming forums buzzed with recommendations. Word spread through gaming communities like wildfire. When COVID-19 locked everyone indoors in 2020, Discord transformed from a gaming chat app into the social lifeline for millions of people stuck at home. Friend groups, study sessions, book clubs, workout classes. Suddenly, everyone needed a place to hang out digitally. Discord's user base exploded from niche gaming circles to mainstream adoption. The platform that started with fake screenshots showing imaginary users suddenly had real screenshots showing millions of actual users. This creates a fascinating economic paradox. Was Citron's initial deception actually efficient? He used fake metrics to secure funding that enabled him to build a product that generated real metrics that exceeded his wildest fake projections. Whew! The lie didn't just work, it became obsolete. By 2021, Discord was processing 25 billion messages monthly. The platform that started as Photoshop mockups had become an essential communication tool for entire generations. The fake growth became real growth, but exponentially larger than anything Citron had dared to fabricate. Now we're entering murky ethical territory, where the difference between entrepreneurial creativity and criminal deception becomes uncomfortably thin. When does strategic optimism cross the line into outright fraud? In traditional industries, presenting fake financial statements to investors would land you in federal prison. But Silicon Valley operates under different rules, unwritten rules that celebrate audacity and forgive deception if the outcome justifies the means. Consider the spectrum of startup creativity. On one end, you have harmless optimism, projecting growth rates that require everything to go perfectly. In the middle, you have aggressive marketing, calling your barely functional prototype a platform, or your 3-person team a company. And on the far end, you've got Discord, literally fabricating evidence of product market fit. The scary part is how the tech industry has normalized this progression. Elizabeth Holmes didn't just fake screenshots, she faked entire laboratory results, putting lives at risk. Billy McFarland didn't just exaggerate his music festival, he sold tickets to an event he knew couldn't exist. But somehow, Discord's fake screenshots feel different. Maybe it's because Citron actually built what he promised. Maybe it's because no one got hurt, unless you count the investors who made millions. Or maybe it's because the tech world had collectively agreed that certain types of lies are acceptable if they accelerate innovation. The startup world calls this fake it till you make it. But that phrase glosses over some uncomfortable questions. How much faking is acceptable? At what point does optimistic projection become material misrepresentation? And who gets to decide where that line exists? Venture capitalists, the supposed victims of Discord's fake screenshots, largely don't care about the deception. Their early investment in Discord returned hundreds of millions of dollars. From their perspective, Citron didn't defraud them. He made them rich. Success retroactively validates the methods used to achieve it. This creates perverse incentives throughout the startup ecosystem. If fake metrics lead to real success, why wouldn't other founders try the same strategy? Let's talk numbers, the kind that actually matter in Silicon Valley. Those fake Discord screenshots, created in an afternoon with Photoshop, eventually became worth billions of dollars. Not theoretically, not potentially, literally billions. By 2021, Microsoft came knocking with an acquisition offer reportedly worth $10 billion. $10 billion. For a company that started with fabricated evidence of user demand. But guess what? Citron turned Microsoft down. The man who once called his father in despair about moving back home rejected a $10 billion payday. Discord remained independent, eventually reaching valuations that made Microsoft's offer look conservative. Just think about the economic absurdity of this trajectory. A few fake screenshots led to seed funding, which led to product development, which led to viral growth, which led to pandemic-driven adoption, which led to billion-dollar valuations. The investors who funded Discord based on fake metrics didn't just break even. They achieved the kind of returns that legends are made of. Early backers saw their investments multiply hundreds of times over. The lie didn't cost them money, it made them extraordinarily wealthy. This creates a fascinating case study in risk and reward asymmetry. Citron's downside was limited. Worst case scenario, he'd get caught, lose credibility, and have to find a regular job. But his upside was essentially unlimited. Best case scenario, he'd build $1 billion company and become one of tech's most successful entrepreneurs. From a purely economic perspective, Citron made the rational choice. The expected value of lying about Discord's metrics far exceeded the expected value of honesty. The startup funding game is designed to reward exactly this kind of calculated risk-taking, even when the calculation involves fabricating evidence. If he'd spent 4 months building Discord the right way, he might have launched into a market that had moved on, with no funding to scale, and no ability to capitalize on the explosive growth that made Discord a household name. The lie generated time, the most valuable resource in startup economies. The uncomfortable truth that Silicon Valley doesn't want to acknowledge is that Discord's success has created a blueprint, and ambitious founders are paying attention. When fake metrics lead to real billions, the moral calculus of startup fundraising fundamentally changes. The venture capital model practically begs for this kind of deception. VCs make dozens of bets knowing most will fail, hoping 1 or 2 will return their entire fund. This creates an environment where founders are incentivized to oversell, exaggerate, and, yes, sometimes fabricate their way to the next round. I mean, just consider the feedback loop Discord's story creates. Every founder struggling with slow user growth now knows that fake screenshots can buy them time to build something real. Every entrepreneur with a great idea but no traction understands that perception can be more valuable than reality. Interestingly, this strategy only works if most people don't try it. If every startup started using fake metrics, investors would become more skeptical, conduct more rigorous verification, and that advantage would disappear. Discord succeeded partly because fake screenshots were unexpected, not commonplace. The irony is that by publicizing this story, we might be making it less effective for future founders. The more widely known Discord's fake metrics become, the more investors will question similar claims. Success in deception often depends on the element of surprise, yet the fundamental incentive structure hasn't changed. Startup funding still prioritizes growth over everything else. Investors still make decisions based on limited information and pattern recognition. The psychological biases that make Discord's fake screenshots effective are hardwired into human nature. So here we are, at the end of one of Silicon Valley's most successful deceptions. Jason Citron went from calling his dad about moving home to turning down $10 billion acquisition offers. For every Discord that faked its way to success, how many startups crashed and burned trying to replicate this strategy? How many founders looked at Citron's playbook, created their own fake screenshots, and discovered that execution matters more than deception? The startup graveyard is filled with companies that had great fake metrics but terrible products. Discord succeeded not because of its fictional screenshots, but despite them. The lie bought them time, but talent and timing built the empire. There's a deeper cost to this kind of success story, one that's harder to quantify, but impossible to ignore. Every time fake metrics lead to real success, trust erodes a little more. Every time deception gets rewarded, honesty becomes more expensive. They faked the screenshot. You bought the story, and the story made them rich. The only question left is, what stories are being faked right now? And which ones will we be celebrating as billion-dollar successes in 10 years? Because if Discord taught us anything, it's that sometimes the most dangerous lies are the ones that come true.